All right, we will try this again since we had some user error at the beginning. So, welcome. This is episode number 2. What did we do episode 1 like 3 months ago or something?
At least, yeah.
I'll blame it on me, just like the user error on. Hopefully, somebody will find this and maybe we'll get some people in. But yeah, gonna talk. This is what is it? We love the '80s cards. We're gonna do this one live. Was really excited when I first did it, and then I kind of went into one of my typical hobby YouTube funks and was gone for a couple of months. Just, sometimes you get doing so much and it starts to feel like a job, and that's just when I need to take a step back.
It's understandable. Plus, I think we hurt ourselves starting before the holidays because people then just have work and tons of extra stuff on the schedule, and then it's almost like it snowballs, and then you're like, I'm so far behind. Do I want to keep going? And so I think we shot ourselves in the foot a little bit, but we're back.
And yeah, I mean, it's good that we did have people asking though. I had some people ask me, "Hey, when you guys going to do the next one?" So, ta-da! Here we are. Yep. It works out well. Mrs. Bean's Ball Card Blog is over in Dallas she got some tickets to one of her favorite bands and went with one of her friends, and you were free this evening.
I am started traveling for work, and with me, I'm gone for multiple days at a time now. So I am officially off this weekend, and I'm near Cincinnati, so I'm going to go to a card show in Florence, Kentucky on Sunday. So that should be interesting. I don't know that I've ever been to a card show that wasn't the national, that wasn't in my local area. So this will be interesting.
Other than Indianapolis.
Oh, you're right. I did forget about that one.
Yeah, you did come out there and see me. Yeah, that was a shit show. I don't think
10 years probably almost now.
Oh, it's got to be something like that. Yeah, because I don't even remember which of the places I was living, but hell, I've been down here almost 8 years now. So I'm trying to see if this thing is showing up, if anybody can see it. Anybody in the chat's not seeing any chat here. Nobody in the chat. All right. So all good. All right. So you had this idea. Anybody watching this on the replay, and I'll mention this, if anybody shows up in chat, ideas of things we want to talk about. We kind of talked about like some origin stories. We kind of took the Dr. podcast approach, and kind of when he does the first one he always did is someone's origin story, and we did that. So you suggested this one, and this was one that didn't really take a lot of preparation. So I thought it was really good since we just talked about this. What was it? 2 nights ago, we said, "Hey, you want to do this?" So we're going to talk about differences. Now, you're 3 years younger than I am, and I noticed on your video. And I noticed on your video today, which you released your first video, and you use Preserve the Hobby over there. So anybody that watches, go check that out. But you mentioned on there, you talked about 1990. So that's kind of the year you got into things and all, though?
That has always been the year. Wasn't the first year that I bought things. And I know we've talked about this and there's different ways to phrase it, but it wasn't the first year that I bought things, but it was the first year that things really started to click. Like it's the first memory that I have of opening packs. And I remember the big, I think they were jumbos, but they were the double side-by-side jumbos for 90 tops. And I remember buying that at Hills, getting a Bo Jackson and thinking that was the greatest thing in the whole entire world. So looking back 30 years later, something like that, it's silly compared to where we are now. But that's kind of, for me, that's when everything started to click. But Topps is the one that does it for me more so than Donruss and Fleer. But 90 is definitely my year. And I know you've talked about 86, 87 kind of being your years. So, yeah, that would, maybe that's the prime age, like 8 years old. like my son is 7 and he's starting to get into wrestling, and we actually bought him some AEW cards. And that's the first time he's ever shown any interest in opening cards. And he's 7. So maybe 7 or 8 is kind of like that prime age to start.
And I wonder if, and this is going to be something I mention later, wonder if that has something to do with, at the time, there wasn't as much to do for us as there is now. Now they've got their games, all that kind of stuff. So, it doesn't seem like they're quite getting into it quite as young. But the reason I ask is, even though on this topic, even if it's not, 90 is kind of your first real memory of it, the concept, whether it be late 80s or 90s, is the same on the differences in collecting then and collecting now.
Right.
I wonder if anybody can actually see this. I see. So look, 5 people are watching, I think. Hey, there we go. Card Closet, welcome. Thanks for being our first one in the chat. So we talked about it before the show, and I think let's talk about the ways, and some of our ways, and anybody is in the chat, feel free to, either, pile on something we say, give other suggestions or whatever. But I want to let's start with the ways that we think the hobby is better now. Hey, Indigenous Rookie Cards, Naim. I can't remember how to say your name. I'm sorry. I feel like a dick. So I am a dickhole. But anyway, Jason, so I was going to say, go ahead and just, we have a list. What's one of the ways you think that collecting is better now than it was in the 80s?
I mean, I'm going to start with the obvious one. I think the accessibility. I mean, that's definitely the easiest one. And, we talked about our ComC orders that just came in. You had a big one. I had a big one. Just accessibility. It's not the local card show anymore. It's online. It's groups. It's forums. It's everywhere. I mean, I'm a part of probably 30 Facebook groups for cards and toys. And it's that thing of, I know it's probably too much and it's distracting, but at the same time, I don't want to leave that group in case I miss something. So accessibility for me is definitely the big one right now.
I never even thought about that, but yeah, FOMO is a thing that probably wasn't as big of a deal back then. You didn't know what you didn't know. And so kind of with what you said, I kind of had 2 different things that kind of made me think about that. Better now, distribution, because of what you said, just more accessibility through eBay, what I was kind of thinking here was the direct to consumer, which is, what Panini is working a lot more with. Topps has been doing it. That wasn't an option for us in the 80s. Our only options then, at least that I can think of, where you bought it local, you were at a local card show or shop, and you had like the Larry Frisch and the mail orders, and that was really it. It's fascinating for me to think that I've been on eBay for over 20 years. And it's just like, there really was a time eBay didn't exist, but that's hard to believe. I don't really remember those days that well. But yeah, and then the eBay effect that's better today is those rare cards, there is a chance that you can find those, is where, even in like the mid to late 90s, right before, the internet kind of took off in the late 90s, there was already serial numbered stuff out there and some relatively scarce. But I mean, if it wasn't in your card shop, it wasn't at your local show, where were you going to find it?
Well, and I think you mentioned the direct to consumer, and the closest we had direct to consumer back then was those binder offers where, some of the pro set was a big one. But those little cards that you would get in your packs, and you could send in $3.95 for a shirt, a hat, a binder. something like that. Or I think Skybox did some stuff in like the points system, or maybe that was Pinnacle. One of those guys, and that's the closest we had to direct to consumer, because obviously there weren't websites and those such things yet. So that's kind of where it started, but I don't think anybody really took those serious back then. But now people kind of collect those cards because there are different variations, and people that do sets, they also add those to their sets sometimes when they're just looking for something else to not to buy, but like if they've done the set and they see these and they're like, well, I can put those on that last page of the binder.
Yeah, I remember. I think points were pro set because I feel like you like scratched.
They did the scratch off, but there was stuff later.
Okay, because I was thinking there was almost like a booklet, like a just a double the size of a card booklet, and they had a little, scratch things.
If I remember correctly, and we're going off on a tangent already, but if I remember correctly, those are the ones you could hold up to the light and see through. Those scratch off.
Have you always been sketchy? Come on, man. I had never heard that.
I never did it, but I never did it as a child. I did it as an adult to see if it worked, but it's been years. But those were like so thin that I thought you could see through them. I don't remember if it worked or not. And then tops, in 92 tops, they had the scratch offs where it was like strikeout or home run or something along those lines. And I remember trying to like scratch off the edge to see if I could like cheat and I, never did, but that stuff was crazy too. But yeah, direct to consumer is a very different thing right now. And especially with Panini Instant and Topps now. And I mean, they're definitely making money. Look how many Wander Franco cards they just sold.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Didn't that pass the Acuna? Didn't that pass the Acuna pretty handily? What, like 60,
I'm pretty sure.
60,
almost 69,000. Yeah.
Acuna was like 42 or 48, I think. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely one of the ways, and I think we're going to continue to see that. I mean, it just sounds like that's what the Yahoo's Fanatic bought it. It's like that's what they're going to want to do. So,
well, I don't know. It seems like there's a loophole for these companies because with Topps, they're not producing basketball brands per se, like in packs, but they're producing basketball cards that are direct with the Topps now, essentially. Almost like they're doing a test. This is a good way for them to do test runs because they have small prints. They don't have to print 725,000 for packs. This is kind of a good test run to see what designs work, what players are popular, and the whole deal. So there's good and bad to it, but
aren't these? I think these are like high school kids and stuff. So they're not in the NBA. They're not in the NBA, and they're not in the NBA Players Association. So really, I guess other than that, you're kind of a free agent. It would be no different than, I guess, putting the same kid into Allen and Ginter because he's not going to be in an NBA uniform and he's not a member of the Players Association. So,
which is interesting. I wonder if they did because the sell sheet for that just kind of dropped earlier this week, maybe yesterday. And I know the big talk about it was there was some sandwich cards in there that Ryan Cracknell posted. But that'd be interesting to see if they used any of those guys for Allen and Ginter, because I don't know if you said this exactly, but that would be a perfect spot to try it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Ginter they can get away with a lot because, again, even though they've got the actors and all those kind of things, and they had Mario Andretti in there. We just talked about it on Carter Radio, and every time I'm on there, I whine and complain and cry about the fact that there's no IndyCar cards. But Ginter did have Mario Andretti back in the day. Goodwin has had some of the drivers recently, so
right.
Yeah, we really do get off topic, but that's okay. I mean, if anybody listened to the podcast when we did the podcast many moons ago, yeah, I mean, we get off topic quickly. So I do agree, like you said, the online. Do you want to touch on anything else? Anything else you can think of? Or
yeah, for me, I'm getting a sore throat already. So I was thinking another positive for me about the way that it is now. It's a good and a bad. It's the double-edged sword of selection, because I think we have so many brands, but it's the same thing that I'm going to bitch about when we turn this around here in 10 minutes, is that we have so many brands, so much to choose from when you look at football, basketball, baseball, and it's the opposite, for racing, wrestling, and it's something that, we talk about on NASCAR radio every week. Is we have 5 or 6 releases a year. That's it. So, but in general, selection, I feel like there's always something and there's a good variety, even though we could make the same complaint that things get overused sometimes, like Allen and Ginter has kind of run its course, in my opinion. But I'm not the only person whose opinion matters, and mine probably doesn't even matter to that degree anyways. But I don't like it, but there's plenty else for me to buy.
Yeah, and I mean, something that we did that is better now that we didn't have then, and this isn't even anything I had written down or thought about, was price point collection. Because basically in the 80s, I mean, Topps, Donruss, Fleer, even Score was the same price when Score started in 88. You didn't really have like an upper, that next tier until 89 with Upper Deck, and then you got it again in 91 with Stadium Club. Again, that's the difference in a 50-cent pack versus a $5 pack. Not quite the difference now between a what's low end pack really, $4 or $5 versus, a pack of, I don't know, some of those high end brands that we're talking thousands of dollars. So there are more entry points. And if you are that high roller gambler, you do have that opportunity to go buy that stuff and, stay away from flagship. And as we like to say, leave some for the kids. But, that's another thing I hadn't even thought of. So that was a really good point, the way you brought that up.
There are 2 price increases that I remember almost like it was yesterday. The first one is 1991 Stadium Club. That was the first pack I ever saw for $5. I missed the 89 Upper Deck for $1 a pack, because, as we discussed earlier on the show, I wasn't really into it in 89 as much as I was in 90. Had it happened in 90, I probably would have realized. But the one for me is the 91 Stadium Club. And then in 2000, there was 2000 Ultimate Collection Basketball. And it was $100 a pack. And the big thing was you got one SGC graded card. And it was, whatever rookie it was that year, and it was serial numbered out of 499 or 790 or something. And I remember getting somebody that I had never heard of. I don't even know if he ever ended up playing the game, and thinking it was the biggest waste ever. But just I remember those 2 specific price jumps on packs of cards. And now, not that it's not normal now, but people wouldn't even flinch at $100 a pack now.
Absolutely not. Yeah, I mean,
and that was different. Point where Topps is $5 a pack almost.
Yeah, and that's what I was meaning, like on the low end now, $5. Yeah, I don't remember those, but I remember like the packs of, it was actually, I think you had some of those in your video that you released today, the SP game bat that you said is one of the best.
Yeah.
Like those, I want to say those were like $20 a pack. I'm a college kid.
Right. Yeah.
I'm a college kid at that point, so $20 is a lot. I mean, I'm still collecting cards. I've talked about it multiple places. I've collected since '87. I never took a break. I've had some light years, and college was probably some of those lighter years. But yeah, it was $20 for a pack. Or the way I still looked at it, it was $20 because you would have still probably been in high school, I think, maybe like your senior year. But where me and the other Jason Martin that was in our area, where we always went to buy cards, was up at the Kmart, because they had almost a full toy aisle that was nothing but blaster boxes that were like $20, $30, something like that. And I was like, I could buy one pack from the guy in the mall that I didn't really like anyway. You know who I'm talking about. Or I could go up to Kmart and get a whole box of cards. So, I mean, I do think I bought one pack of those SP. It was SP Game Bad Edition or something like that.
I think that is. I think you're correct. That design, I think, still, if it had been, I think if it was released today, it would be one of the most popular designs out there.
It's really good. I mean, that's one that over the course of time, I had acquired a few of them, and then through one of my purges, I got rid of them because I was like, oh, I'm going to put this set together just for nostalgia. And then, of course, me, I'm squirrel with cards and can't stay focused. So I got rid of them at one point, and that's definitely one of my hobby regrets is, not keeping those.
So that's 70 show. Can you put quotes up here? His middle quote.
I do not know how.
Oh, come on. You're killing me.
Which one?
So Upper Deck also introduced the Mylar pack, leaving the True Wax pack.
Hey, I figured it out. How about that? Son of a gun.
So it's interesting to me because I still, back to 1990, if I see a 90 Upper Deck box for a relatively good price, I'll buy it just to open it again, because that is probably my second favorite set behind 90 Tops. I love the Griffey card in there, and I love the Bo Jackson card in there for whatever reason. I always have. But those packs are still, I don't know if sturdy is the right word, but they're not falling apart. They're still sealed. They're still crisp when you open them. It's not the same for 88, 89, 90, 91 Tops that was the wax pack. And I think, not that anybody cared back then what it was going to look like in 30 years, but to me, that showed, ingenuity, and look at where we're at. We're still talking about it, and it's still something. To me, that's a good feeling. Every time I open a 90 Upper Deck pack, there's a certain feeling to the way that it opens and the sound, the texture. To me, I love it. It's just one of those weird things.
Yeah, the foil pack, definitely, I get you. And then it was different. It was a different kind of foil in like the 91 basketball, but it was a little different. And I remember that. Yeah. But I know, I believe it was on 70 show. Yeah, Upper Deck introduced that foil pack. But for me, as someone that was collecting, and again, would have only been in my second year, I found the bigger jump from 87 Topps Donruss Fleer to 1988 Score. And Score had that plastic pack. Kind of the same thing as football. No, those things are garbage. There's no doubt. But they were so different and cool to 9-year-old at the time. And that's why I felt like the bigger difference was from 87 to 88 and 88 to 89. But again, this is also through the eyes of someone that was 9 or 10 years old.
Thinking back, because the brands don't really do it now. We have, we have retail and hobby packs, which are essentially the same feeling, texture, price is different. We're not going there. But then there are fat packs, which pretty much every brand is the same almost. And then we have hangers, blasters, megas, hobby boxes. For the most part, those are all the same. But when you're talking late 80s, early 90s variety packs, 88 Score their rack pack was up and down. Same for 89.
I don't even remember a score rack pack.
And then you had the Tops triple packs where they were, side by side. And then the 90 Tops jumbos that were double, like this. And it was just so many different types of things, wax packs, foil packs, where it was throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I would, the boxes from Toys R Us packs, not packs, but sets, excuse me. Like the little deck of cards looking boxes. Like,
like the Fleer and Tops, like the 33 and 44 card, the box sets.
Yeah, like the Toys R Us rookies and stuff like that. And like such variety.
And Circle K and just everywhere.
Such variety in the stuff that was out there. And it just, not that creativity is lacking. We have 300 sets a year, to pick from. But creativity is lacking in the way that things are packaged and sold, because it's just like, well, yeah, the $20 blaster works. It's worked for 25 years. Let's just keep it the same way, and finally we got megas, which was something different. But when you go from 20 to 55, that's not really what I'm talking about. I'm talking about just some creativity where it's like, hey, what's this? Because it looks different, I'm going to buy it. Like Upper Deck does the 10s. Don't get me wrong. Those are nice. But they've done that for a while now too.
Yeah. And there's really, he does the thing with pins. So there's really nothing that overly special about them to pay an extra $10 to $12.
Right.
They were cool the first time or two I found them, because I was collecting hockey for a while. They were definitely cool the first time I found them because I'd seen everybody else get them. But honestly, it wasn't like you got one Young Guns per 10 or anything like that. But yeah, if we think that creativity has been stifled, wait until our new monopoly takes over. I have a hard time believing things are going to get any better.
Now, I will say Tops, I will give Tops credit because they did 10s. I want to say 2020, they did 10s. And they had different players on the front to make them collectible. Acuna, Vlad, Bryce Harper was one, I'm pretty sure. Judge, the typical guys. But at least Upper Deck, it just was the same thing on the front, every time. At least for the Tops ones, there was something collectible about it. Because of the different players
like
on the
that.
front.
They would have, I think, four different subjects on them. But again,
I thought they were all the same for Upper Deck.
No. They were different. Might have been like maybe every case was the same. So maybe in the store, it might be possible that your local Walmart had 12 Patrick Kanes or 12 Carey Price, but they didn't have 4 of each or 3 of each or something like that.
So while we're talking about it, and I know this isn't 80s technically, but is there a packaging that sticks out to you as being awful? I have one in mind, which is why I brought it up. But I wonder if there's something that you remember, anything like that you were just like, what were they thinking?
You going to go with Pinnacle Inside? Is that what you're going with, or did I just come up?
Yeah. I will say that was my break time. Like there was a couple years I did more toys than cards. And that's, 96, 97, something like that. But like, even to this day, I don't get it. And I have empty cans in my little antique shop thing that I have. Nobody touches them. Like I've had this place for 2.5 years and I'm trying to sell empty cans for 50 cents because they do have different people on the front of them. I don't know if I've ever sold any, and I sell some pretty random stuff.
So you're telling me they don't get stolen either?
If they do, I don't care enough to notice. So
that's great. All right. So for those of you that, some of you that have joined in, I don't know if you all know Jason. Jason, just go ahead and kind of introduce yourself again, kind of where you are and work studio wise and all that.
All right, so where do we start? So everything for me is pretty much Jason Dean Martin, the name that's on the screen there. I do have some stuff out there that is preserve the hobby. It's very limited. It's something I keep going back and forth on how much I'm really going to put into it, but I think I'm going to start working with it a little bit. So preserve the hobby on YouTube. Twitter, it's just preserve hobby. Not enough characters, but also one of the hosts of NASCAR Radio every week. But I kind of do a little bit of everything. I'm on Hobby Hotline every once in a while with Bo and Val and Logan and Drew and all those guys. And so I'm kind of everywhere and have done a little bit of everything. You know, I'm not going to go through my whole past again, but I'm there. I'm around.
I think you and I, it's just funny. I mean, we've known. Oh, so also, guys, preserve the hobby on YouTube. He released his first video today, which is which was his Calm C order. So please go like, subscribe, check it out. You know, if y'all are here, you're already subscribed to me. So Dawn's Field of Dreams asked if I'm a Mountaineer. So, you know, we can get into this. Yes, I'm a WVU grad. I grew up in Morgantown, and Jason and I have known each other for more than 20 years because he is also from that area. And he lived in Morgantown for a while. I mean, he's, you know,
we are well traveled though.
Do what now?
We are well traveled though.
Yeah. So yeah, so we knew each other from there, and you know, work and just the what little card community there is there. So, I mean, Jen honestly is like one of my longest term friends because I don't keep friends very easily because I'm a grumpy old man. So, but anyway, yeah, I just wanted to, because I know some of the guys that are in here may not actually know you. So I kind of wanted to get that out there. Yeah. And both he and I are kind of like, you know, you have these guys that are YouTube stalwarts and you have these guys that are, blog stalwarts, Twitter stalwarts. He and I, we've done what, 2 or 3 different podcast names together back in the day. You know, I have beansballcardblog.com and he used to write on there. And I used to write on there too. I've blogged. I've done just a little bit of. It's like the whole. What is it? Something of jack of all trades, master of none. I think that's kind of where you and I are when it comes to this stuff. But at the same time, we've both talked to Dr. Beckett, you know, things like that. So makes me feel all warm.
So I'll give a couple other things. So not a ton of people know because I don't put it out there. I did Steel City Collectibles' social media a couple years ago. And I'm just going to throw them under the bus. Back when there was substance on there. So any of the articles that were written like top 10 lists or the rookie watches and all that stuff, that was all me. Now it's pretty much just retweets of headlines. So that was all me back then. I did that for a little while. And then
did you get the first interview with Vegas Dave after something big happened?
I sure did. Like, we're totally going off, but that is the strangest.
If anybody's that mad, I mean, I guess they'll just leave, but they're already bored if they're listening to us anyway.
So that is the strangest story, and I'll just go ahead and tell it because it's quick. So when Vegas Dave bought the Mike Trout card in 2018, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to email him. I have nothing to lose. I'll just say, hey, I just want to interview, talk about the card. It'll take 5 or 10 minutes. So emailed him whatever night it was. The next morning or through the night, he responded because he's West Coast, we're East. He responded and said, yeah, I'll do it. And it was like, holy shit, are you for real? So we set it up and he was like, hey, I'll call at like 10 o'clock or something like that. And it was the same day that something happened where gambling got legalized. and it was in some big deal like New Jersey or something, and he called Steel City Collectibles and said, "Hey, can we do this interview right now? I'm getting bombarded with interview requests for the legalized gambling thing." Did the interview. I can't say anything bad about him. I mean, he was true to his word. He responded. He went out of his way to call me. And I know people have said negative things about him, but from my experience, I'm not going to say he was great, but he was there. He followed through. He was honest. And we did like a 30-minute interview, and then he snowballed into tons of interviews about the trout. But yeah, somehow I got the first one. I don't understand. But
yeah, I kind of forgot about that until you just started talking about
I
it.
kind of did too, actually, until you said it.
All right, so let's, for the 32nd time, let's try and reel this back in a little bit. Like I said, I guess I was with that when I had him introduce himself was A, so you guys could maybe follow him if you don't already, but B, that's how we get off on. We just, when we were doing the podcast before, we maybe have a topic or two, but we really just, it was kind of just recording him and I talking about the hobbies, and so we do kind of get off on these Paramounts, but we're both free on a Friday night, so neither one usually get a lot of free Friday nights. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in one of my better nows. And kind of like you said, this is also going to go on the better in the 80s. But I'm going to say grading, but less so grading because I'm not the biggest grading fan. But authentication of stuff out there now, whether it be finding out, you can buy a 52 Mickey Mantle that's authenticated, graded a PSA 1, but at least you feel better that it's authentic than if you just went to a card show and bought off some guy that had mustard and ketchup all over his t-shirt.
It's true.
So, again, I'm not the biggest fan of grading, but the feeling better about the authenticity of things that are slabbed, whether it be just the cards themselves. I have 9 Dale Earnhardt autographs. 7 of those are aftermarket. Again, maybe they're not all legit, but
still an opinion. Yep,
is legit, and I feel better. Now, granted, I took some chances and did some of those myself, but some of those I bought because they were certified. But
also, not to cut you off.
Well, but still, to an extent, it's the wild, wild west out there, and we know that none of these guys are infallible. But
True.
I know that they're better than I am.
And I'm in the text conversations too, where you ask possibly the 2 biggest NASCAR, not experts, I'm not going to go there, but the 2 biggest NASCAR collectors. I mean, for God's sakes, one's a PSA Hall of Famer for NASCAR collecting. I'm in those conversations, and I've been thinking, I'm learning as we go, and that's the whole premise kind of behind NASCAR radio and me being on the show is that outside opinion. But like, there have been a couple that I'm like, I think that's good, and somebody will say, well, this makes me think otherwise. And then vice versa, where I'm like, I don't think that's good. But then they'll say, well, yeah, this is always in his signature. So, yeah. So I think you're doing it right. I mean, you're buying aftermarket, but you're getting, at least in my opinion, respected opinions from people that are respected in the racing collectible community.
And the guys have looked at the ones that I bought and then got certified. And those guys were 3 for 3 on those. The only one I had that did not pass, I don't believe I asked them. I'm pretty sure I caught it like at the last moment.
Yeah.
And I spent like $13 on it. When you spend $13 on a Dale Earnhardt autograph, you feel pretty good that it's not authentic. So you take it for what it's worth. But again, yeah, I mean, I've got those guys that, you're talking about King NASCAR on Twitter and NASCAR Radio, Val and Logan. Yep. Who Jason does a weekly show with, and I was on this week, shameless plug. John at that 70s card show asked, is counterfeiting prevalent in racing cards? I've listed pretty much the episodes, but you might think of some things. Obviously, in the case of Dale Earnhardt autographs, and I'm sure a lot of other autographs, it can definitely be a thing. There are certain guys that those same two guys have said, if it's his item, don't buy it.
Right.
And that, that tells me when those two tell me both don't buy it because it's from him, that tells me all I need to know. Now, I don't know, Jason, you might have an idea. Are there counterfeits on like the 88 Max, the Unos, the STPs? Have they ever talked about that?
Nothing that I can remember. I think it's kind of along the same lines of we talk about the number of releases that other sports have. We always joke football has 74 releases a year, NASCAR has 5. If I'm going to fake an autograph, I'm probably going to go for Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders, Ken Griffey Jr. versus Jimmy Johnson. Just the amount of eyeballs on an Emmitt Smith versus a Jimmy Johnson is probably, out of 10, it's probably 8-2 or 9-1. But also, to his question, if there's money to be made, somebody's going to try to fake it. So it's out there, but it's percentages. Most people aren't going to try to fake a NASCAR autograph versus an NFL or a Major League Baseball, in my opinion, at least.
And I would say my thought process is probably Earnhardt and Gordon are probably
the bigger names. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you would think Richard Petty, but Richard Petty, there's more signed Richard Petty cards in the world than there are unsigned Richard Petty cards, because that dude is the TTM legend. I don't care, regardless of that man signed everything. So there's no point faking his, because let's be honest, you can get his autograph so cheap. There's going to be a day, but yeah. So how do we get on that? Oh, authentication. So I mean, I like that aspect of authentication. If I'm going to go buy, a 1935 National Chico Bronco Nagurski, I'm not buying a raw copy. I'm buying an authentic copy or a one, because I just want to know it's real. If I'm going to go spend that kind of money, I want to know that it's real. And I'm okay. It would be okay with an authentic or a one, because I could still say I have one of them, in that case, one of the most desirable football cards there is.
See, I'm surprised you haven't went to this perspective that I'm about to give you, or this opinion, whatever. I'm of the belief that, let's say that I'm going to buy a Mickey Mantle 52 tops. If I'm going to spend $1 million on a card that's a PSA 4 or whatever, wherever we're at on that $1 million range right now, please don't be stupid enough to not have done your own research, let alone taking somebody else's word for, not saying that PSA is going to authenticate a fake mantle, but just using that reference for the financial value and that dollar amount that is coming out of your pocket. Please have done your own research.
Yeah, but for
and
me,
I don't mean you at all. I just
no. I know what you're saying. But in my case, there are vintage football cards that I would like to have, but I'm not an expert on them, and I don't care enough to, what they always say. After you've had a few of them and you feel them and I don't want to go spend $50 a piece on 6 different ones of those, because that $300 I can put into something else. So
right.
I guess that's kind of where I am. Again, I'm not a big graded guy, but I mean, I will say the thing with grading is there is a place and time for it. Authentication, there's a place and time for it, but we all know, or we should know, that those guys are not infallible. Stuff happens. New graders are, I mean, there's probably what percentage of graders amongst the top companies now have been doing this for more than a year and a half, 2 years?
No, I wouldn't think many, because of how many they've been trying to hire.
Exactly. So, you still have to, be careful about it. But that's one thing that I think is a big advantage today, that we do have that. And, I'm not going to say that every card I have in a slab is authentic or untrimmed or, whatever, but I feel a hell of a lot better about them than I would if I just bought them at the Dallas Card Show.
So two things, and they're not related. So into the grading and the new people, I'm not going to say who, and I'm not going to say which company, but there was somebody that works for one of the companies that said, hey, do you want to move here and start grading? And it's not somewhere that we want to move, but also at the same time, I think I know a lot, but I also realize how much I don't know. And I was very honest and said, besides the moving, I don't think that's something that I want to pursue, just because I have so much respect for the hobby, the industry, whatever you want to call it. That's just not for me. If you want me to write and market, I'm your guy. But grading, I'm not there. But also what Mark said, I'll only buy raw and vintage from a dealer I know and trust. There's flags for everything, like red flags for everything. If you see a guy that's selling all the Bowman Chromes in the world, and then they've got this one nice vintage card, not somebody I would necessarily buy it from. But if you go to a guy that's all vintage, all 60s, 50s, all T206s, that's probably a guy that I would buy from 20 times before I would buy from, somebody else, because especially if it's an older guy, we're profiling now here, but
it is what it is.
Yeah, there's experience there.
There's a reason for it.
Yep.
Yeah, like we have a guy here who, Rich Klein talks about, you'll hear him mention every once in a while, but his name's Roger. He has gone across the country in the past, and he does like one-man card shows, like he sets up in a motel room or something. But he's from Norman. He is an older gentleman. I'm assuming he's probably into his 70s. But that's all he does is vintage. And I mean, yes, he does pre-war, and he wasn't around when pre-war was a thing, but I'm pretty sure he was collecting in the 60s,
that knowledge.
70s, and yeah, he's seen more cards from that era than I will ever see.
Right.
So yeah, when I buy off him, I buy raw. I bought more T206s off him than I've bought anyone else that is raw, because of, like like Mark said, and you agreed with.
Well, and even what Diego just said at the bottom, I mean, that is word for word what I'm thinking. Because if you can ask a guy, what is this, and his answer is longer than 5 words, typically that's somebody that's invested. And that's, in anything. If you go into, like, I used to work at Lowe's, and I was a rep for a company that was in Lowe's, right away if somebody knows their products just by the answers that they give you, if they're more detailed or less detailed, that's who you can trust. And that's essentially what we're talking about right here.
Agreed. So on your, let's reel it back in.
Yeah.
On your, do you have any more on your better now side of your sheet?
We should probably go to the other side.
Well, I got 2 more, so let's just
go ahead.
On those. There's more information on products now, and whether that be, the new products. I mean, let's use 88 Donruss, just because you remember, well, you weren't collecting them, so that's a bad example. You weren't quite into it. But probably when you were looking back, it's in 90, 91, there were a lot of those cards that had DP beside them. They were double prints.
I always thought it was draft pick. For years, I thought it was draft pick.
Not in that case. It was double print. But Greg Jeffries not a double print, and Greg Jeffries was the one you wanted. But, we didn't really know as much back then. I mean, they knew those were double printed, but there just wasn't as much of those information on, like, single or whatever prints. And now, we have codes on the back of cards to tell us it's a short print. It used to be you found out naturally over the course of time, oh, hey, there's a lot less of this every card that.
Well, and even the odds are printed on the pack.
Yeah. I mean, regardless, there's all that information. Not only that, but so much research has been done over time that the amount of knowledge out there on the T206 set now compared to when I started collecting 30-something years ago, I mean, there's just way more. I mean, that knowledge may have been out there, but because of the internet and everything else and publications, that information is much more freely available. Now, I will say, though, that I have some things I've noticed in some IndyCar sets from the 80s. I cannot find any information, and I know that there are variations out there. So I'm going to talk about that in the future. But I bought this a couple weeks ago.
Sounds like you need to write a book.
An old Beckett Almanac. So this is from 2002. So it was for so that I could look at Dale Earnhardt stuff, because I don't really care about the stuff post career.
Newer,
but also it has all those little paragraphs underneath every set, and a lot of that stuff, like even if you go to Beckett.com, is not in there when you look at the set. So I bought that because I wanted to look at some of this and see if I could see, oh, hey, these variations are known. These are out there. I need to look for these. Nothing. So, but just, even though there's plenty of things out there we don't know a ton of, especially pre-war and things like that, there's so much more information about those things. And obviously, there's very little unknown about current stuff outside of sometimes print runs and things like that.
Right.
But even scarcity, we know that a short print is more scarce than a regular, and then a super short print, and then, so we know all that stuff because, hell, that's on the sales sheet half the time.
Yeah, most of it is. And, I give credit to the companies that don't give away everything up front, that let some stuff get discovered. That's awesome to keep that mystery in there. But going back to the books, and I think I had shared some links with you a few years ago, even though those books, those huge almanacs are, technically outdated because they redo them every year, you can get those sometimes for $5 or $6 and they're great. Like, I think the ones that I still look at and use are like not as old as that, but like 2008, 2009 editions, because in my opinion, it goes up to 2008, but everything in it isn't changing, most likely, so those books, actually, if you can get them for a couple bucks or something, not to, pass up, I think it's a pretty good bargain, but that's beside the point right now.
I mean, this was like $8 delivered.
Yeah.
In 2002 on the shelf, it was $15.
Yep. Well, and some of those are like 40 now.
You and I also like having our little card library, so it kind of is. I mean, there was a reason I got that. The two reasons were, A, I didn't care about post-career Dale Earnhardt stuff so much, and I just want a reference to go back and look at other stuff and see what other information I could find, because stuff from the 80s, 90s, and earlier, it's not quite as readily available, because now, like it was Mark said, and I showed it, we have Ryan Cracknell for modern releases, and he's absolutely right. I mean, if I need to know something about a set, I type the set, Beckett, and I go find Ryan Cracknell's article.
Yeah.
Because not only, does he we all trust and believe, he is good for the hobby, so we all trust and believe him and know that he does a fantastic job.
Well, and even for the stuff that he doesn't know, he asks people. Like, I know he's reached out to Val and said, hey, can you send me a picture of the pack so that I can get the odds? So that guy, I give all the credit in the world to him, because he's doing his homework when the companies aren't providing the information that they probably should. I mean, let's be honest. If you're going to supply it to somebody, he's the guy. But he's doing his homework, and he's MacGyvering that as much as possible. So
I think he's like, I would say he's like the most important under the radar person in the hobby.
Yep.
To collectors, especially. Yep. So, all right. So the other thing I had on the better now is there are just a lot more ways to collect now. For the most part, so let's take the 80s. There were two, basically, that I know of, two ways you collected. And it's funny that John's in here, because this morning on YouTube, Dr. Beckett posted podcast conversation with John, that 70s card show. Now, I don't know when this actually went up on Dr. Beckett's podcast because I just listen to them when they come on YouTube. But they were talking about building, and not necessarily in specific to the 80s, but in the 80s when we were kids, you usually collected two ways: you either set built or you were like a player collector. And now there are just a lot of different ways people collect. I mean, and there were probably type collectors and things like that then, but there's just a lot of different things you can do now because of the way the hobby itself, technology, everything like that is evolved. I mean, set building in a way kind of is a lost art. I mean, there's not as many people that do it. And I would say most of the people that do set build are my age and up in general.
Yeah.
Again, always going to be exceptions, but it's our age and up, and it kind of is a dying. No, they're talking about if maybe it was making a comeback. So I would recommend anybody go find Dr. Beckett's Sports Card Insights on YouTube, and he posted it today. So that was just another thing. Like, there's more ways because of all the other things, eBay effect, the amount of information that's out there, just the fact of the internet itself. So those are some things that are better now. You wanted to go ahead and flip it over. So you give me your first way that, for you, in your opinion, thing was in the 80s.
I'm just going to piggyback off of what you said and make it a new thing. Set building was a thing. It's not, I don't think it's the fault of the collectors. I think it's the fault of the manufacturers, because we've put so much into the hit that, like, people throw commons, people throw base cards away. And there was a shop in the mall, Meadowbrook Mall in Bridgeport when I worked at the mall there. I would go in and just take boxes, like 800 count boxes home of base cards, because the guy that worked there knew, hey, I'll give them to Jason. He'll take them, he'll sort them out and do whatever. People were just throwing stuff away, and that's kind of how it is now still. I mean, you can find cards at card shows laying around on tables because people took the hits and left. But I also think, for anybody that did watch my video, if you notice, I bought a bunch of heritage short prints. And it's like, I shouldn't have to buy short prints from a base set. I shouldn't have to pay $2 for some dude that maybe played one game in the majors this year because he's a short print nobody really cares about, but he's technically harder to get, so I have to pay more for it. Just make it a base set, make the inserts harder to get. I don't understand what was wrong with the formula before of base inserts parallels. Now we have base cards that are short prints for no apparent reason.
So one thing I'll throw against the wall. So I did see this. I might respectfully disagree, although I can't say that you're wrong by any stretch of imagination. Started with factory sets in the 80s. And maybe that is where it started, but there's not factory sets out there now other than Topps flagship.
Topps, yeah.
So
there's a random set. Donruss does football, or Panini does Donruss, excuse me. It's not the same, because even with the sets now, there's a chase element to it. There's 5 inserts that you can only get in the set. Well, people weren't buying it for the set, most likely. People were buying it for the 5-card insert pack, typically.
So a couple things I'll say on that made me think is, A, you've got the fact that, okay, let's just call it a spade. So we'll use 1987, the year I started collecting. There were 3 baseball sets a year. There was Topps,
right.
Donruss, Clear.
Right.
88, you can add Score, and 89, you can add Upper Deck. Still, even in 1989 with Upper Deck, and then go to 90 and you can add Leaf. So now we're at 6 sets. How many baseball sets are there a year?
74. No, that's just my number I use, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the cost of the packs, the cost her, I mean, is way past inflation. Nobody, I won't say nobody, but very few people can afford to go buy boxes and put sets together like they used to. So kind of like you said, not necessarily through the collector's fault, but in part due to the card manufacturers, it's just not feasible. And let's just be honest, even in the 80s, it cost more to build a set than it did to buy a set.
Mm-hmm.
But that difference was nothing like what it would be now. Honestly, if you want a hair set with short, you need to go buy the damn thing because it's going to cost you 20% of what it's going to cost you to put that thing together by hand. And I'm not criticizing anybody for doing it because I understand. Because up until a few years ago, I was still trying to do some sets. And I just went one day, I'm like, I'm really not a set collector. I don't know why I do this. But I do know that it used to piss me off when I was trying to complete sets. And I had a 10-card pack and had 2 inserts in every damn pack. I want the damn base card so I can finish the sets.
Right.
Instead of this 25-cent insert that, nobody wants. But that's that's another, yes, flicks. But again, you still get the idea. You definitely get the, idea of what we were saying that, or what I was saying. Yeah, I mean, there's just so many of them out there now, and just it's not. And then, I mean, hell, even in them, take Bowman. You got Bowman, and then you got Bowman prospects, and you just got 45 iterations of the same damn product.
Right.
One's chromy, one's papery, one's purple, one's green. Right. So, yeah, I definitely agree that that's one way. There's more ways to collect, but it has definitely, I think, in a lot of ways, killed off the set builders. We know still out there, but I do think that most of those guys are probably 35 and older.
Yeah. So for me,
I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong.
For me, I try to get a Topps factory set every year. I try to build a heritage set, and then I try to do team sets for 3 teams out of Topps and heritage. And then, I do the whole binder thing and all that. A few years ago, I bought a complete handmade set from Britt and Becca for like, I don't know, $30 or $40 for heritage. Something in my mind ridiculously low, but it was 1 through 400, no short prints, whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was just, hey, I can actually just open heritage and just kind of enjoy the crap out of it because I knew my set was coming. I spent my $40 for my set. I was good to go. Then I was kind of hunting for short prints, which is a whole nother ball game that I'm not thrilled with. But it was like, hey, I can actually just kind of enjoy these packs and not think, here's another 30, here's another 30 for some packs that I'm, only halfway to the set and $60 in packs when I can buy it for 40. So I started doing that, and I've done it every year since. And I've enjoyed heritage so much more because it was back to just opening and enjoying that texture, that feel, and the pulls of anything that I might get.
I'm going to show this one Diego just typed, and I'm going to expand on this. I have mentioned on other people's videos. I don't know what microphones some guys have, but they open like, say, 88 Topps, 89 Topps, and just that almost sandpaper sound as you flip through those. Yep. That sound alone brings back so many memories for me because that's what it sounded like. Now it's either you don't hear anything or it's as you try to pull the glossy card apart from the glossy card behind it. I love it. I don't know. They're like, no, I don't do anything special with my. Yep. Like, I don't know. I feel like you've got a microphone in the pack because it sounds so awesome as you just slide those cards. And for the card graders with the Surface, they're probably cringing as I say this, although none of those guys are watching the show anyway. But the feel, the look, and I mean, in a lot of cases, I can watch somebody open like a pack, the 89, 87, 88, 89 Topps, and I can smell the cards. I can smell the bubble gum. If they open the 87 or 88, 89, the Topps Mini League Leaders cards, they have different.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the gloss. and I can smell that when I see those cards. But yeah, I don't know. The cards, the brick, that's like 93. Those things are bad.
93. Of course, that's the Jeter rookie. But going back to what you and Diego had, mentioned with the texture and stuff, the one thing, and you listen to NASCAR radio, you've heard me say this a handful of times, I'm sure. I think I think Panini is missing the boat by not having a Donruss Heritage-esque set like Topps does for baseball, because could you imagine, a racing set that looked like 91 Donruss, that was the blue or the green or whatever color you want to use, but it had that feel? Because they do it with the 87, 88, 89, whatever designs, but they do the shiny, glossy stuff. If they did that vintage feel set for 90, like, people can complain all they want about 90 Donruss and how much there is of it. But if you had a heritage type set that was 90 Donruss, I think people would be all over it. If Panini did that for baseball or racing, we talk racing on the show, but I think they're missing the boat, because Heritage, it's got to be Topps's number 2 seller behind Flagship. I mean, and look what it is. It's a retread.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the things that, now granted, this won't help with NASCAR as long as Panini has that. If Fanatics does buy that is kind of one of my hopes, that if with Fanatics bringing the basketball and football kind of underneath that same banner, that they kind of will have some consistency across the different sports.
Yeah,
maybe they do have a vintage stock product. A Topps Heritage football, a Topps Heritage basketball, even if it's small. You know what I mean? At least it's out there, and it is something for, if nothing else, those things are a lot easier to get signed. They seem a lot better.
Yeah.
For that. So for no reason, again, I know it won't help with NASCAR as long as Panini is not purchased by Fanatics. If they haven't done it yet, I don't see any reason they're going to do it. And I mean, we're going to lose WWE heritage. So wrestling's not going to have that now. Again, I know wrestling is minimal, but it is one of the things that I do happen to like.
So you just mentioned consistency, and let's get an opinion, because it was something that kind of used to happen, and I don't think it happens as much now, but I could be wrong. It's hard to do numbers in your head that fast. But do you like, let's say that Panini has baseball, basketball, football as they do?
Yes, I like it. I already know what you're going to ask, but yes, I like it.
Do you like when, for 2021, Donruss, do you like if baseball, basketball, football, and racing have the same base card design?
Not just yes, but hell yes.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
I missed that. 1996 Collector's Choice was pretty much the same across all sports.
Did it. Yep.
Upper Deck would do that. Yeah, I mean, I love that, and I miss that, and I do hope there might be some of that. I mean, but at the same time, are they trying to us the 40 and ups, or are they trying to appeal to, who are they trying to appeal to? I am no longer in that key TV demographic that they want, and it's kind of the same with cards. I'm just the grumpy old man. So, but no, I knew exactly where you're going with that, because I've talked about that at various places, various times. Obviously, I don't know where. But it's one of those things that, yes, I love, and I talk about it quite frequently. Score would do it. But yeah, no, I absolutely love that.
And it's one of those things where if it's going to be great one year, I want to enjoy it for every sport. And if it's going to be crappy, I want it to be crappy for all the sports. I'm here for both sides of it. I want to
1995 Fleer that everybody hates.
Yeah.
I freaking love that. It's like where they have the design for each division or something like that, and everybody, it's like the second most hated after 1991 Fleer. In 1991 Fleer, think about it, across the sports, they were different, but they all sucked. Baseball was that yellow. Football was that green.
Yeah,
Basketball
yeah.
was red and blue.
I love the basketball. I love the basketball.
I hate them. I hate them. I really do. But I think 91, 92 basketball was just bad across the board. But we're getting.
It was a Dikembe Mutombo rookie year. How was that a bad?
The designs. I liked the upper deck with
okay.
the hardwood kind of on the one side, but man, those things were overproduced about as much as 1990 Pro Set football. That is the epitome of junk wax. Oh man, yeah, we get off topic a lot. So, kind of something. I'm gonna go with my bet in the 80s because it kind of goes with where we just were a minute ago. Something that I think was better about the 80s, and this is actually something that because I never left, if I'd had a break, I think things would be different. But because I never left, this has always been my lack of focus. Hey, squirrel. Back then, back when I started in 87, even as a kid, it was relatively reasonable that I could collect it all.
Yeah.
Not just all three baseball sets, but also the Topps football. I guess at that point you would have had Fleer basketball. I wasn't into basketball at that point. You could even as a kid, because of the price point, if your parents were, my parents bought me cards because it kept me out of trouble. It kept me out of their hair because I could literally just go play with my cards all night. But I could collect it all, and that's why I think I have trouble focusing now because there's so much out there that there's no way to collect it all. I'm not even sure if being independently wealthy, I could collect it all. But that's something that I loved back then because there were only, let's take 87. In reality, there were 3 baseball sets. You can throw Sport Flicks in there if you want, but Sport Flicks couldn't be found in my town. Even in 87, you couldn't find 87 Fleer in Morgantown that I know of. And then there was Topps football, and that was really about it. And I mean, I'm sure there was hockey and basketball, but those just weren't in my region. But I'm sure that I would have tried those had they been. And that's something that I miss, that I can't just collect it all. And that gives you that, I jokingly shouted FOMO earlier, but it gives you that FOMO, and that's not something that I really remember being an issue in the 80s. Maybe I'm wrong.
I think you should point that pin a couple more times.
Hey, you will see the pin and you will like it.
So
anyway, that was one of my better in the 80s.
I'm going to go to mine. And I want to say I talked about this on the first show, so every show just might be a repeat. But for me, and this goes into the set collecting, binders. The themed binders in Pro Set was great at this. It's one of the things that I loved. And I'm going to try to do something. So let's see if this works. I'm going to try to share my screen for a second. I want to plug.
Can't I show just you or something? I thought that was something.
Let's see here. All right. So this is what I want to share. Can you see that?
There we go.
Can you see this?
I have seen those because I've looked for some of their stuff.
Dude, so this website is called baseballcardbinders.com. And there are binders for every set that you can think of. And they're all custom made by this company. And I look back and I wish I had cards to fit in every one of these things. They go old to new. Now, granted, if you see the 2011, you can see the theme is the same, but it doesn't say Topps. It says Pro, but you get the gist, but having the binders for some of these older sets, I'm trying to get something 80s, there's 82, 84 for Fleer, 3D 711. There's never going to be a 711 binder, a legit, but these things, I've never purchased one. It's been on my wish list for as long as I've known about the website. This 87 Don Russ, that's perfect. For $28, that's
How
not
much is
bad.
it?
$28.
Okay, I've looked at the football ones because I've been searching for old football binders. So I thought about maybe it's a different company that does the football ones, but there's an 87 tops. I don't know that I'd seen the baseball ones, but man, that definitely makes me want
There's
to.
89.
Yeah, because I have a bunch of unopened boxes of junk wax. That's from 87 to like 91. That I'm going to open someday. And I just said I'm not a set builder, but I'm going to put those together because of the nostalgia. Yeah, I mean $30 for a binder. That binder's worth more than the set is, but I do like those.
Well, in my defense to that 70s show, I've never shared screen on any StreamYard show that we've done for NASCAR radio or anything. So I'll take that compliment and I'll improve. But
hey, neither one of us really know how to work StreamYard. I mean, we're lucky that we're even live.
Something like that, and I know there really isn't a market for this like there probably was at one point, and even at that point, maybe it wasn't as much as I think it is. But just the ability, this company, I'm sure they don't have thousands of these binders laying on the shelf in their warehouse. They're all custom.
And that's why they are so expensive. They've got dozens.
Right. But at the same time, it's like everything imaginable. They asked about the 87 Fleer Minis. I don't know offhand, but I would imagine there's 87 Fleer, to where it's at least close.
Yeah, you showed me those. Yeah, like 87 Donruss is one. So the 87 Tops and the 87 Donruss were like the two first sets that I put together. Well, unfortunately, we're both still at my dad's when my childhood home burnt down. So I've put those back together. Well, I have boxes to put those together of the Donruss. I've done the tops. I've done the 86 top, which was my first set. But what I'm actually using, though, is I do like those, but actually what I'm using is I found somebody actually locally. I still bought them off eBay, but they have like the exact binder my first set came in. And I bought like a lot of like 10 of those. So those are actually what I'm going to use for those. But for the football, I can't seem to find the football equivalent of it. I know they exist, but in eBay, I mean, I've been looking for 6 months, and I have not seen one pop up.
Yeah.
Ideally, I need a lot because I don't want to pay $3 for one and then pay the $18 shipping that it costs to ship a binder. But anyway. All right.
Yeah, so for me, that's something that I liked back then was – not necessarily promotional products, but the swag, which I hate that word, but the swag that matched or that went with whatever set you were building. So that's what I miss. And even not going back to the 80s.
Keep talking. I'll be right back.
All right. But even not going back to the 80s, but the early 2000s, if you bought a hobby box of tops, they would give you the sticker to go on the end of your white box that you were putting a set into. So that was, I would even go back to that. Just that, not promotional, but that free sticker to mark your set, appropriately.
I forgot to hit mute too, but you mean like this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I bought this at a card show at some point. The old, I'll put it a little closer so y'all can see it. But yeah, I got paid like $10 for it. I'm like, this is not staying here for $10. But yeah, old pro set hat. I mean, this had to be one of the ones that was on either the back of the pack or in those little inserts that we talked about earlier. But yes, I could not pass that up. And if I see stuff like that, I will always, again, nostalgia. I'm
the same. And a lot of times people are trying to get rid of that stuff.
Yeah. And that's the stuff that, I absolutely want.
So real quick before we go on, Diego asked about the link for the site. I can't put anything into comments in StreamYard, but it was baseballcardbinders.com.
How do I give people a wrench? Oh, I think you have to talk. I think you have to have something.
So
I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how to do that, unfortunately. So that you can.
I don't know how to do it through StreamYard. So, but it was baseballcardbinders.com.
And then maybe after this post, if we think about it, we can put that down in the description.
Yep.
If we think about it. So, kind of going back, I'm going to say one of my better in the 80s. And again, we've started to touch on all of these already on the other side, but something better in the 80s, no monopolies.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean, I like that Topps made everything. I like that Upper Deck made everything. Now, the non-baseball didn't happen until 2 years later. But, score football didn't happen until the year after baseball. But the no monopolies also allowed what you asked me earlier. Do I like when the same design goes across all sports? And yeah, I do. But you can't have that when you have these monopolies unless it's literally one monopoly like it looks like it's going to be. And, then maybe you can go across 3 sports. You may not have hockey, but sticking sport, you get it. I mean, hockey's fourth on the totem pole, so not necessarily as vital. But football, baseball, basketball, the big boys, you could conceivably have the same design. Now, of course, I think that you're going to get a lot of, in this day and age, a lot of people calling that lazy, because we do hear lazy a lot in terms of designs, I feel like. And I'm not saying that people that say that are wrong. But I think lazy is kind of looking the same year to year, not necessarily, kind of a up and down, not necessarily the side to side.
And I mentioned Allen and Ginter earlier. I think Allen and Ginter is lazy. Like, it's run its course. They pretty much all look the same. Let's try something else. Try a new old, bring back another old brand. Stop Allen and Ginter. I agree with you. Lazy's not the same design for everything the same year. Lazy would be year to year. So yeah, 100% agree with you on that.
Yeah, I don't mind that the F1 used the Topps baseball design or that WWE.
Exactly.
I actually don't like that. Is it last year's WWE flagship that is nothing? It used to be like the baseball, and I liked that.
Well, and even their heritage is not the same as the baseball heritage, which I understand why.
No, but I think that has something to do with the year that the set started.
It does. I understand.
There is something to that, but I also didn't like that in Wrestling Heritage they skipped the 88 Topps design, but that's neither here nor there. I've grown to love the 88 Topps design as much as I hated it for 25 years. I've now grown to love it. So, any more Monopoly thoughts?
No.
All right, good. You got another. What do you got? What else was better in the 80s? In your opinion?
Better in the 80s.
I got 2 more. I mean, if nothing else is,
it's not that I don't have stuff. I'm trying to think of things that maybe we haven't touched on. I'm gonna say I liked the amount of brands. I liked ProSet was a different company. ProSet wasn't Leaf run, under the Leaf umbrella. ProSet was on its own, as evidenced by, the living set, the first real living set, essentially. I liked that things were separate. Like when it was like Donruss Playoff, I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about people buying brands, buying the names, and taking those over.
Skybox, Score, Pinnacle, those things. Like those kind of started a little hairy.
Like the Upper Deck Fleer. I'm not a fan of that. Fleer Skybox, I'm okay with. Upper Deck Fleer, not the same. It wasn't the same ingenuity. It was just different. Like when WWE bought WCW, that's totally a different reference. but it wasn't the same. You know what I mean? When it was a separate company, separate people running it, that's what I liked. When, Sportflix was around for one set a year, but it was different. It was a completely different ball game. Even though they only had their one piddly set, I don't need 74 different things. Give me 10 that are completely different, and I'm good. So the different manufacturers to me was a big deal.
I'm going to go with, so one thing I liked, and again, this isn't card related necessarily, but I brought it up earlier, maybe it was before the show even. There was less to do. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all the gaming systems and everything. So
right.
I like that, and that helps me keep my attention on cards. I don't know myself as a human being not collecting cards because I've done it since I was 7 years old. So it is a lot of my identity, a lot of my personal identity, even though a lot of people that know me probably have no idea I collect cards, and that's okay. But I like that aspect about it, and it allowed me to kind of zone in on sports, and it kind of made me who I am today. Again, that's not really a card thing so much, but it was just something. You've got some youngsters, and I'm sure they love their video games and iPads and whatever else.
So, do you think it was less outside influences, or do you think it was a fewer number of sets and you were able to focus more on a smaller number?
I didn't have anything else. So once I got into cards, I just didn't care as much about anything else. I wasn't collecting action figures. I wasn't doing other things like that. But maybe part of that too is that I didn't live in town. There were no boys my age in my area. It was all girls. So maybe that actually has something to do with it as well. If I'd lived up near First Ward Elementary where I went, there were other kids my age. Maybe I would have been out doing other stuff. But yeah, just didn't really have much else going on. So again, I don't know. Again, that doesn't really have anything to do with the card companies themselves, but it definitely was a different time. Living where I lived with no other kids my age, though, if I had my cell phone, my iPad, my video game system, and everything else, that would have definitely changed what it was and all of that.
Right.
And I got one more. Unless
you
got anything else there.
No, go ahead, and then we'll finish up.
We said better now. We talked about distribution, but better then was better distribution because we could find cards in toy stores, convenience stores, grocery stores. Most of my cards when I was younger were probably up through about 89 were bought. There was a grocery store called Big B down in the South U Plaza down on Don Knotts. That's kind of down there where that Aldi is now, kind of roughly there. But we go there, and if I was good, Mom would buy me, while we were in the grocery, she would buy me a couple of Donner Cello packs. And that was my $1. And that's what she did for me being good. Well, that doesn't happen today because really they're just blasters and maybe some loose packs, but they're in Target and Walmart and Meijer, and that's it. But yeah, we could have been toy stores, convenience stores, grocery stores. What else am I missing? I mean, I'm sure there were other distribution models, and I mean, we can talk about how that.
Look at the chat.
Do what?
Look at the chat. You'll see one.
Oh, Little League snack bars. Agreed. I used to get 87 tops. I played all down Wally Park, right over by South Junior High, and they had them there, and I think they had them at the West Mall Field too.
And you mentioned a couple stores. I'm thinking of a couple stores that's where I'm going. Like Revco and Murphy's and Kmart.
I forgot about drugstores and
dude, in 94, I'm 12 years old. I used to look at the Sunday ads for CVS every week because the CVS would mark down Collector's Choice from 99 cents to 69 cents. And it was like I hit the lottery because that 30 cents, I mean, it's only $1, but 30%'s a lot, for something.
Well, in that case, you got an extra pack every time you bought 3.
Right. So, and it's not, I think if we still had, and you and I have this background, I think if we had more retail stores around, Hills, Ames, the Woolworths, like he mentioned, we just don't have that anymore. It's like Walmart, not really, but in a sense, absorbed all these brands and all these stores that no longer exist, and it's just not what it was, because there are however many Walmarts, but back then there might have been 20% of that, but the other 80% was made up of all the other stores that we've mentioned. So there's just not that variety. It's the same with LCSs. We just don't have as many as we used to. They're not on every corner like they used to be.
Oh, okay. I guess my wife's already heading back home.
You better hurry up.
No, she's her friend's bringing her home. So those were so that was kind of, it was different. It's hard to say whether it's better now or better then. I mean, better now is that, I can afford more because I have more disposable income than I had as a kid. But at the same time, back then I was able to collect pretty much all of it because of the lack of so many brands and the price point and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I don't know. Anything else you want to talk about?
I'll just bring up one thing really, really quick. You're talking about distribution, and I mentioned it on, I think, Wednesday when we did NASCAR radio. Food issues. Or maybe that was Hobby Hotline. Either way, food issues. Nobody does that shit anymore. Like, nobody does food issue cards, and they were all over the place.
We had on the Monday show I do with Herman 3B Collection. John was on a couple weeks ago. John and Rich Klein were on with us on that. We did an hour talking about the food issues. Yeah, it's crazy that I didn't even think about that on my list, but that's the thing, is nobody's really mentioned anything different, like how it was better then or now. But I'm sure there are so many things that you and I haven't even thought of. But it is funny, you say, oh boy, here we go. But it's just funny if it all comes full circle. We talk about it now. You mentioned it on a show within the last couple weeks. We've talked about it within a couple weeks. I mean, it's a recurring theme.
Yeah, and Diego mentioned the Utz. We had Utz, and then back in 2014, I want to say Walmart did market side pizza. And that was actually some stuff that I bought in my ComC order. I finished up that set. But I bought Walmart pizzas for no other reason than to get the cards. I've never bought a Walmart pizza in my life, except for 2014. Yeah. So it did its job. I mean, the pizza wasn't bad, but I've not bought one since then. So it's something that I wish more money was invested. And that's when they say, oh, this is for the kids, blah, blah. No, it's not. Not anymore. It reminds me of golf when Tiger Woods came in and stuff just went through the roof. It's not the same, and you can't go back. It's not, but I think it would help issues. It would help get in some kids' hands, and I think that's what we need. But again, I was listening to a conversation today. Oh, it was JT. It's Triple Crowns or Triple Crown 24. His sports card psychology, and he was talking with Victor about rookie cards, and they were talking about, the players' union needs to step in and clarify the rule. They don't give a shit about cards.
No.
I don't care. People say, "Oh, well, Fanatics and this and that, and they're going to have it." Look at the salaries they make.
Yeah,
they don't care about the freaking whatever $10,000 they each get because of trading cards. Let's be honest, most of those guys wipe their ass with $10,000. They don't give a flying you know what, and you can prove that by the fact that they only want to have one licensee to deal with. They don't want to do the extra work for the other stuff.
Right. Yeah, I think that was a big show of
where they really were on. We just want to simplify this, be done, have one conversation instead of 6.
So do your work, think anything about it. Just go on your way. We don't care about your money.
Right.
So, but that's just my opinion, and you know what to say about opinions. We all have one, and mine's usually right. But anyway. All right. So anything else you want to, any closing words?
No, I've said enough.
All right. I don't think anybody else joined, but go ahead and tell everybody where they can find you.
For the most part, everything is Jason Dean Martin. Every week, NASCAR Radio with me, Val, and Logan. I almost couldn't remember his name. And then I have just recently started my Preserve the Hobby stuff. Preserve the Hobby on YouTube. Twitter, it's Preserve Hobby. But I try to keep everything as close to the same as possible. So pretty much everything for me right now, though, is Jason Dean Martin.
Yep, same with me. Obviously, most everything's Beans Ball Card Blog, except for Twitter, because I couldn't characters again, like you had said with your Preserve Hobby. So that's what I got. That's what we got. I guess we'll talk about it off air, but just in case anybody's got more boredom for their Friday night, Jason and I may go live after this and just bullshit for a little bit if anybody wants to join in. Maybe not. We'll see. Got to figure out how long it's going to be till my wife comes home and all that. But we may do that. So if anybody's interested, keep an eye out. Otherwise, it's been real and it's been fun. Yeah, it's been real fun. I enjoyed it. If you're watching the replay, or even if you joined us in chat, put in the comment section of the video. Give us some more ideas of things you'd like us to talk about about the 80s cards. We'll try to do a little bit better job of staying on topic than we did tonight. Yeah. Maybe. We'll see. We got some good response to the first one and some ideas, but always looking for more ideas of what kind of things you'd like to hear us give our opinions on and talk about. It's not going to be a heavily researched, heavily produced thing. It's just going to be him and I chatting, just kind of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I got. I appreciate everyone joining us. Anything else, Jason?
Nope, not at all.
All right, don't want to leave you hanging. So, as I say at the end of my other videos, y'all be smart, be safe, don't be dickholes, be kind to animals, have your pets spayed or neutered. We'll see you down the road.